Welcome to the collection. I'm
Affleck!
Why didn't you hear that name?
Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display. Today we're looking at the Todd McFarlane DC Multiverse Batman as he appeared in Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. This is a very cool recent release from the McFarlane catalog, one which actually tempted me to re-watch Batman vs. Superman and try out the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And honestly, after watching those two movies, he is no longer my least favorite Batman. I've come to appreciate him a lot more. I mean, he's not the most developed Batman we've ever gotten, not the most charismatic, but he does have the best physicality of the bunch. Especially when you go ahead and watch that warehouse scene from BVS and you see how he has the same physicality as the Batman from the Arkham series. Just totally tearing crap up, not really caring who lives and who dies, just absolutely wrecking up the room and causing a whole lot of damage. So with that being said, I've come to appreciate this Batman a lot more. Not quite my favorite, that probably goes to Keaton or Pattinson, but still pretty damn cool. So all that being said, does all those opinions give me rose-tinted glasses when looking at this figure? At first it did kind of. There are a few little problems, we'll get to them when we get to them, but for now, let's just start off with the box. As I mentioned before, I am just not a fan of the DC Multiverse packaging, just because it's the exact same thing every single time. Like, as it is, it's fine, but you just know they could be putting unique inserts relating to each figure into the box, just adding some neat fancy graphics all over the place. They do that every once in a blue moon, but not often enough. Ultimately, this Batman gets the same generic treatment, nothing really unique is going on, except for when we turn to the back and we have that very iconic 2016 BVS cinematic poster, which looks absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, I do not have a Henry Cavill Superman to compare him with. The only two versions that do exist are quite elusive now, but now that they've released this Batman, that gives me hope, no pun intended with Superman and everything, that maybe they will re-release or perhaps upgrade a new Man of Steel. So we'll see what we get in the future. Let's start with the standard DC Multiverse accessories, of course beginning with the DC Multiverse figure stand. And next up we have the trading card, which once again has that BVS poster on the front, and we also have a bio on the back with a profile image of Batfleck up at the top. And here we are with Batfleck over here, a figure which I have two of now, and I want to explain why really quickly. So I originally ordered him on Amazon, just on pre-order, and then my pre-order got canceled and they refunded me, so I was a little bummed about that. But then I went out to Target and I managed to find one on his lonesome on the rack, so I picked him up and I'm like, alright, cool, I got my Batfleck now. But then all of a sudden, the other Batman dispatched, I received him, and then I was charged for that one as well. So I own two of these Batmans now. Now let's actually talk about the damn figure, starting off with the head sculpt as we always do. At first, I thought it was really solid, and I still stick with that sentiment. I think it is a very nice looking cowl and face, and the eyes are also very well done. However, it looks nothing like Ben Affleck whatsoever. I guess from certain angles, like I noticed if you caught it from right around here, it kind of looks like him, but staring at him head on, it just doesn't quite fit the bill for this particular Batman. For any other, like, generic Batman, I'd say it would look pretty cool, but because we know the actor underneath the suit, he doesn't quite cut it. Like, we're going to do a figure comparison a little early here. Here we have the Justice League variant of this Batfleck from the 6-pack, and you'll notice that there's a very distinct difference in the shapes. The head on the Justice League variant is a little bit wider, and then over here on the new release, it's a lot slimmer. It's much more form-fitting than this chunkier one that we have over here, which I prefer. So I don't know why they couldn't have just and then swap the heads. Like, why create a brand new head when you already have a pre-existing one that's absolutely superior and a lot more film accurate? So I don't know why they did that. Though I guess when we look at them from the sides, there is a slight difference from them conceptually, like sculpt work aside. You'll notice that there are some little ear holes carved into the Justice League one, which I guess wouldn't be screen accurate to the BVS version that we have over here. But still, it would have been nice if they just reworked the sculpt, got rid of the ear holes over here, took this head sculpt, and dropped it over here. And if you did want to do a head swap, it wouldn't quite work because I'm not sure how well you can notice on camera. The black on this cowl is just a little bit darker than the black we have over here on the Justice League cowl. It's a little bit gray. So if you did go to swap them, you'd probably need to do a little bit of paint work. So if you just wanted to pop this head off and drop it onto here, it wouldn't match up quite as nicely color-wise. As for this head sculpt and its own merits, I do think it is very well proportioned. Again, should be a little bit on the wider side to match the bat fluffiness as he should have. But, I mean, you still got the short ears, you got the tight fit cowl going around, you got the nose, you got the face, which is pretty well painted. I feel like you could use a little bit more stubble or something, like a little bit of airbrushing to indicate that. I think that would have been pretty neat. You also have some brown eyes peering out from the eye sockets, of course. On the back of the cowl, no real details whatsoever, it kind of just rounds out, and that's about it. Moving on down to the rest of the cowl, it branches off onto a separate sculpt onto the rest of the torso, and it lies over top the pec area over here, where we have the really big Dark Knight Returns logo. And I really love what they did with the rest of the body. This is where this figure gets really exciting. You can see a lot of McFarlaneized details going on. You have some etch work here in the logo itself. Looks like it's got some scoring, which is really neat. As for the body glove, it has almost this glove texture, looking absolutely beautiful, along with a gray wash, giving him a little bit of shadow, making him look a little bit more dirtied, a little worse for wear, and I really appreciate that. It really helps to differentiate him from all the other cinematic Batman that we've gotten in the McFarlane line, so I appreciate that a great deal. Down to the arms, the gauntlets are pretty much the same. You've got the trademark 3 fins going off to the side, a few little etchings over here to indicate some grooves, some separations in the leather or whatever material that his gloves are made of. And by default, oops, that's popping off a little bit, he comes with 2 gripping hands, which are also really nice. After looking at some shots from the film, I do believe he is supposed to have some silver knuckles, which he does not have here, but nothing that a little paint can't fix, so that's not a huge deal for me. Let's also talk about the cape, which is very beautifully done. And if we pull out a little bit here, you'll notice that it drapes very well on this figure over here. If I turn him around to the back, it just feels very natural. I love the way that it drapes down. You know me, I'm a soft goods guy. I don't prefer the big slab of plastic that we'd otherwise get with a plastic cape, so this is a lot better. And it is also better than the cape that we got on the Justice League figure, where you wouldn't really be able to tell too well on camera, but the cape on the Justice League Batman is a little bit on the thicker side, so it doesn't drape down quite as nicely. You can see it kind of flares out at the shoulders a little bit more, and it's a little bit more chunky going on the way down. But on this BVS version, it's a little bit more soft, a lot more thin, and it just drapes very nicely. And if you want to branch it all the way out to do sort of a Keaton pose or a flying pose, and it comes out a pretty good deal. It does a good 180 semicircle over there. Moving on downstairs, we also have the utility belt, and it is done completely in this gold, but I almost feel like there's a slight wash to it. Perhaps not. I think it's just natural shadowing going on here, but it really does bring out a lot of little sculpting details, a lot of the edges, the grooves and everything, and I really appreciate what they did here. They didn't oversaturate the paint, like they do with with the shinier colors that we've seen, which sometimes stiffen up the joints or just make a figure ultimately not bring out the experience that it should. But here they went with a much thinner paint that doesn't hide or gummy up all the really crisp sculpt work that we have in the belt itself. So I don't know what they did here with the paint, but whatever they did, I hope they keep doing it. It's a lot nicer here than we have seen with some of the shinier paints that we've seen in the past. Down to the legs and the pelvis, it's pretty much the same sculpt work and detail work and paint work that we've seen on the torso, also looking absolutely spectacular. But one thing I did want to bring notice of is you'll notice the knees are articulated ever so slightly on my behalf. And that is because that is the only way to get this Batman standing up perfectly straight. You can see him right here. He looks lined up and everything. It just seems like he's a little bit more upright. But if we click those joints back in, talking about articulation a little early here, obviously, he tends to lean forward and fall, as we just saw. And that is because the ankles, now we're moving on downstairs a little bit, they are ratcheted, so it's really difficult to have him standing up straight. Like you'd imagine if you just held him right here by the feet and then try to pull him back a little bit, he'd come up straight, but he doesn't really want to do that. He always wants to lean forward. And if you do want to click the joints back, then it's all the way back here. So the only way to get this guy standing up straight is to pretty much click the upper joints and the double jointed knees, and then that's what will allow him to stand up a little bit straighter. So I'm not too bothered with that. We've seen figures from McFarlane in the past that do have that articulation issue, but ultimately it's not the most visible thing, so I don't care too much. And again, this is the most physical Batman we've ever seen on screen. I don't mind having his legs posed up a little bit, especially because he's going to be doing some kicks, some crouch downs, some punching actions and everything, so I don't mind that. This is going to be one of those Batmen who's not going to be very stoic on my shelf, so not a worry for me whatsoever. And then lastly, down to the big old clunky boots. Boots are boots. I say it again. Easily one of the best parts about this figure, and one of the reasons why I wanted it so much, is he comes with a good amount of accessories. I really like how now we're starting to see more alternate hands, more weapons, and things of that nature for figures that are around the same price point, so I appreciate that quite a lot. So the first thing we have over here is an alternate pair of hands, this time fisted. You can see that the knuckles are once again not done up in silver, so that is something I, again, might go in and fix up myself. He also comes with a grapnel hook, looking very chunky and enormous. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be this huge. Like, if you bring out a fist over here, it seems a little large. We'll put him in one of his gripping hands as well so you can see what that looks like. And also, I'm noticing up at the front, this bugs me just a little bit. It doesn't really have that nozzly feel to indicate that you're getting a cord coming out of this grapnel hook. It almost looks like it's a compact grenade launcher, like from GTA 5. It just feels like it should be launching out a much larger projectile than it should be. So I feel like the sculpt work overall looks fantastic, although a silver wash would have been nice. But then when you get to the front of it, you don't really know what's supposed to be coming out of this thing. So I wish they could have workshopped the front of this grapnel launcher a little bit better. And we also have a pair of identical batarangs, which are absolutely massive. Like, these are more Batman tomahawks than batarangs. I feel like they could straight up just take someone's head off. But they're pretty well sculpted. I mean, looking at some reference images, there should be some extra grooves, like in the middle of the wings or something like that. And also an outline of silver also would have looked really cool. And also if they maybe would have made some more crisp edges on the sides of the batarangs to look like they were actually sharp and could impale someone as they do in the film, that would have been neat. But that being said, for an action figure, they are pretty well done accessories. And if we want to pull in Batman over here, we will do some accessory swaps and everything pops off and on pretty well. So if you want to get a fist over here on the right, easier done than said, just drop it right on, not an issue. Proportionally, everything shapes up very nicely. Let's keep this gripping hand over here as we get the cape out of the way firstly, and get the grappling hook and pop that into his hand. It is a tad on the stiff side, so you gotta bend it open a little bit, and then slot in the hook, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Again, I feel like it's a little on the chunky side. For those of you who are a little more familiar with Batfleck than I am, let me know how accurate the scaling is in the comments, but I just feel like it's a little bit too big. As for batarangs, if you want to get those in, all you need to do is take one of the corners, plug it into the hand, and I just stretch out this hand so it's not the tightest grip right now, but once it contracts a little bit, then it holds a batarang pretty okay. You can kind of just leave it in there, and yeah, not too bad. Another big standout for me with this figure is the articulation. I think it is one of the better articulated Batman that we've gotten in the line. So we have this much tilt in the cowl, which is really appreciated, especially since a lot of Batmen are not supposed to move that much, but in this case, he is more mobile in the film, so works for him. Also got some tilt down, a little bit of tilt up, so he could do a little bit of flying. I don't think he does a lot of flying in the film, but that is an option for you. 360 Exorcist swivel. You also have some really big butterfly joints, so you can do a very good amount in. You can see it almost lines up with the head, which is really great to see. Comes out 90, swivels all the way around. You just have pretty much whatever leeway you want. Oops, did I lose a hand? Yep, you lost a hand. Let's port that back on. Be sure that you get a nice distinct click when you're porting those hands back on in the future, unlike me. You also do have a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows that come back out. You also have that same up, down, left, right wrist. Down to the torso, you have a ball joint underneath the pecs, so you can do a good amount of tilt, which is excellent for his physicality. Have a little bit down, got a great amount back, and that all kind of combines with a ball joint that you also have behind the belt there. So that much back, that much forward, it just looks fantastic. I really love getting him hunched over like he's about to barrel his way out towards somebody or some goons or something like that. As for the legs, full splits. You can also hear that ratchet in there, so you can hold some really good poses. As for kicking forward, it gets a little bit stuck on the bat diaper over there, but it does hit almost 90, comes close enough, doesn't really need to go all the way up, but if you pair them both together, then he can get all the way up there, if you so desired. As for knees, double jointed, as we kind of talked about already. Again, you need to manipulate that upper joint a little bit to get him standing up perfectly straight, or a little bit slightly crouched, but as close as you can. Crunching that back in, there is no calf swivel or thigh swivel, unfortunately, but you do have a swivel in the ankle, along with some back, some forward. Do note the really loud ratchet joints in there. As for the toe articulation, it's very, very small, but it's in there, so you have that as well. And then, of course, you also have some rocker. So overall, this is a really good figure. I love the way he moves. Wish the cowl were different, but aside from that, I think he's a really damn good Batman figure. As for size comparisons, I just pulled 3 Batmen from the Warner Brothers 6-pack. So we have the Kilmer, the Clooney, and again, the Justice League Batfleck over here, and they're pretty much in the same height realm, it looks like. I think the Kilmer is ever so slightly taller, and the Clooney is ever so slightly shorter, but overall, pretty much an even plane over here. And lastly, of course, we have the Silver Black series,
Mechamuck! Talk, you rat, I'll break every bone in your body.
I don't even know what you want!
I'm trying to save Martha.
Martha? I thought she was buried in the cold ground.
No, it's a different Martha. This thing knows where she is.
But the book that reminds me of my father and reminds me of all my childhood trauma. Does he know about the book?
Yeah, probably. If you kick him in the pants for a while, he'll spit something out.
Kilmer, let's kick some ice.
Cinematic universes suck, you know that?
To be honest, despite some minor flaws and grievances that I have with this figure, I didn't realize that I'd love it so much. I think the high point about this figure is the body and the articulation. I love the sculpted details, I adore the paintwork, and I love the way that he's able to move around just as he did in the film. As for the cons, I feel like the head sculpt could have definitely been reworked. We've certainly seen better ones in the past, so I feel like they could have just used one that they already had, or made a brand new one to represent as he looked in Batman vs. Superman. I also really love the way that the cape drapes over the back. I think that's very nice. But then again, we do have some articulation problems with the legs because of the really strong ratchets and how you kind of need to work with the knees in order to get him standing up straight if you do prefer a more idle pose for him. But again, he's supposed to be more on the dynamic side, so for me, that's not really a bother. Overall, though, I do think this is a very cohesive figure. It comes with a lot of accessories, which you can also use with the Justice League Batman, who had absolutely none. And overall, he just has a really great presence to him. Makes me appreciate Batfleck just a little bit more. So, at the end of the day, for me, a happy ending. I really love this piece of plastic. So, that's about it for this review. If you enjoyed, then please, as per usual, be sure to
like, comment,
ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals. And subscribe.
This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the pod Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.